I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My name's Mike and I'm 36, married to Lisa for about 8 years now. We started out pretty solid, good jobs, a nice house, the usual picture-perfect stuff. Honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. But about a year ago, I started noticing little things that didn't sit right with me. Lisa, my wife, she's always been kind of a bitchy person. She's sharp-tongued, quick to lie, and she's got this way of dismissing my concerns without really addressing them. I guess I was too comfortable or maybe too blind to see what was really happening. It all started subtly. She'd get defensive when I asked where she was after work. She'd brush me off, say she was hanging with her friends or working late, but I'd catch her lying about small stuff. Forgetting to pick up the phone, her stories didn't match up, and she'd get annoyed if I pressed her for more details. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just work stress or her being her usual bitchy self. But then, things got worse. A few weeks ago, I was in a minor car accident. Nothing serious, but I was pretty banged up. I had to do physical therapy and I was mostly stuck in bed for a while. During that period, I noticed some odd things. She'd leave the house at strange hours, sometimes late into the night, claiming she was out with friends. But I knew Lisa. She doesn't really have friends like that. She's always been kind of a loner, and she doesn't go out that late unless she's up to something. What really pushed me over the edge was the weird way she'd act when I was home. She'd be more irritable, maybe even a little defensive if I asked her anything about her whereabouts. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I started to get an annoying feeling that something was off. Then came the biggest clue, her phone. I'd never been overly controlling, but I had a habit of checking her messages when she left her phone lying around. One day, I saw a few texts from someone named Ben that didn't seem innocent at all. The messages weren't what you'd call overtly explicit, but they were enough to set off alarm bells. Talking about meeting up, can't wait to see you tonight, and stuff like that. I felt sick reading it. I knew who Ben was, her physical therapist, a guy named Jake. I'd seen him come around a few times during my recovery, and at first I thought he was a decent guy. But now I was starting to think he was more than that, that they'd been sneaking around behind my back for a while. I was furious. I printed out some of those texts and kept them in my pocket, just in case I needed proof. I spent the next couple of days trying to piece everything together, watching her behavior, noticing how she'd become more distant, more bitchy, more defensive when I asked questions. The worst part, I was losing sleep over this, feeling betrayed, wondering how many times she'd lied to me, how long this had been going on. I was feeling like a fool. I'd always thought Lisa was a bit of a bitch, but I never imagined she'd be capable of cheating on me, especially with a guy who was supposed to be helping me recover. The betrayal cut deep, and I knew I had to confront her. But I wasn't sure how. That's where I am now, trying to figure out what to do next. So I finally decided I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see it anymore. That night, I waited until she was in the shower, giving me a few quiet minutes to gather my thoughts and those printed messages I'd secretly kept in my pocket. I was trembling, I won't lie, but I knew I had to face her. When she got out, I called her into the living room. She looked at me like I was an inconvenience, that usual bitchy glare that's become all too familiar. I could feel my fists clenched, but I took a deep breath and pulled out the printouts. "Lisa," I said, voice trembling but trying to stay firm, "I need to ask you something, and I want the truth." She looked annoyed already, crossing her arms. "What is this? Who's Ben?" I held up the paper. Her face instantly turned red, but she tried that same damn old act, lying, brushing it off like it was no big deal. "Oh, that," she huffed, rolling her eyes. "It's nothing, Mike. Just some stupid guy. I met at work. We're just friends. You know how you can be paranoid and overreacting. God, I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of this." I stared at her, feeling my stomach turn. "You've been lying for weeks. Don't try to spin it. I saw the messages, Lisa. You've been sneaking around, meeting him behind my back. During my recovery, when I was in bed, helpless, you were out with him. How could you do that? How long has this been going on?" She scoffed, trying to act like she was the victim, that I was overreacting. "God, I can't believe you're even asking me that. You're so damn insecure. I didn't do anything wrong. You're just jealous because I'm better looking than your sorry ass." Her lies were flowing fast, but I wasn't buying it. I could see the little cracks in her story, the way she was shifting her weight, avoiding eye contact. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she betray me like this, especially when I was vulnerable? I wanted to hit her, to scream, but I just stood there trying to keep it together. I told her I knew about the affair, that I had evidence, and demanded she tell me the truth. Her only reply was more insults, more dismissals, like I was nothing but an inconvenience. That night I stayed awake, replaying everything. The realization hit me hard. My wife, the woman I trusted, had been cheating on me with a guy who was supposed to help me recover. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I was so blind. Pain was sharp, like a knife twisting in my gut, but the anger was worse. I felt humiliated, betrayed, worthless. How could she lie to my face, call me crazy, and keep sneaking around? I've been nothing but good to her, and she repaid me with this. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I started to plan, not just to confront her, but to make her pay. I didn't have a clear idea of what that looked like yet, but I knew I wanted her to feel what I felt: humiliated, betrayed, crushed. I'd spent years building this life, and now I was wondering whether I'd just been fooling myself, whether I even knew who she really was. I didn't sleep much that night. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of all this betrayal settling deeper into my bones. In the morning, I knew I needed to decide what to do next. Part of me wanted to blow everything up, call her out in front of everyone, tell her I knew about the affair and that I was done. But another part, the rational, calmer part, told me to think carefully. I needed to come up with a plan, something that would make her regret what she'd done without just flipping into a full-blown rage. I didn't want to be the guy who loses control, but I also didn't want to be the fool who takes her back after this. I realized I had a choice. I could walk away or fight to make her pay. And believe me, I was leaning toward the latter. After I had a night to process everything, I knew I couldn't just confront her and then pretend it never happened. That wouldn't fix anything, it would just give her the upper hand. I needed to come up with a plan, something calculated and cold, to make her regret her choices. I started by gathering everything I could find: more messages, some of her bank statements showing late-night transactions near that motel where she met him, and even a few pictures I managed to sneak from her phone. I knew from the start that I couldn't just blow up and go ballistic. That's not me, and honestly, I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to realize she'd lost someone who genuinely cared, someone who'd been there for her through everything. But I also knew I had to be smart. I couldn't let her see I was planning anything. Instead, I played it cool, acting like everything was normal, but behind the scenes I was working on my own form of justice. I also decided I needed a confidant, a friend I could trust, someone who could give me advice without judging me. I reached out to my brother, Mark. I told him what was going on, but I didn't give him all the details at first. Just enough to make him understand that I was hurt and angry, but wanted to handle it the right way. Mark was the kind of guy who always had my back, and he told me one thing I needed to hear: if you're gonna do this, do it right. Make her regret lying to you, but don't screw it up with some cheap revenge. Play it smart and you'll come out on top. That advice stuck with me. Over the next week, I stayed quiet, observing her patterns. I kept her under a kind of quiet surveillance, nothing obvious, just enough to know when she was lying or hiding something. I monitored her phone, her movements, her online activity. I wanted her to think I didn't know, to taunt her, to make her feel like she was walking on eggshells. Meanwhile, I was planning my move step by step. One morning, I decided to run a little experiment. I left my phone unlocked on the coffee table when I went to the bathroom. Sure enough, she couldn't resist. She pounced on it, scrolling through my messages, trying to act innocent. I played it cool, pretending I didn't notice, but inside I was thrilled. She was starting to crack, showing signs of guilt, maybe even fear. That's when I knew I had her exactly where I wanted her: cornered, vulnerable, and ripe for the taking. I also made sure that I had a way to record everything. I got a small hidden camera and set it up in our living room, aiming at the couch where she'd sit when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I didn't want to go overboard, but I knew that having visual proof of her lying, sneaking, and meeting him would be crucial. If I was going to make her regret this, I needed her to see herself caught, exposed, and humiliated. It was the only way I would get closure, to see her unravel just as she tried to do to me with her lies. Throughout this process, I felt a strange mixture of emotions: hurt, rage, a sense of betrayal, and a tiny flicker of relief that I was finally taking control of the situation. I'd been a good husband, I'd tried to be understanding, and I'd never raised my voice before. Now I was determined to make her see what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. I didn't want her to think she could get away with cheating and lying without consequences. I wanted her to feel the pain I'd carried inside, to see that I was no longer going to be her puppet, her fool. As I sat back, watching her act so casual, so oblivious, I knew that the next move was mine. I could feel my heart pounding just thinking about it. I'd waited long enough. Now it was time to escalate. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say or do yet, but I knew that once I made my move, everything would change. And I was ready for that. Ready to see her squirm, to make her regret she ever crossed me. Because in the end, betrayal like this doesn't just go unpunished. And I was going to be the one to deliver that punishment, cold, calculated, and final. The day I finally decided to confront Lisa, I made sure everything was in place. I had the evidence, screenshots of her messages, the bank statements, the recordings from that hidden camera. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I hadn't missed a single detail. I didn't want some half-assed confrontation where she could lie her way out again. No. I wanted her to understand that I had all the cards now. She came home that evening, acting more bitchy than usual, snapping at me over small things, her attitude outright hostile. I kept my cool, didn't say much, but I could see her sneaking glances at my phone, trying to gauge if I knew anything. I played the part of the clueless husband, but inside I was stewing. I was ready. When she finally sat down on the couch, I pulled out my phone, showing her the screenshots of her texts with Ben, the bank transactions showing she'd been near that motel during my recovery, and the videos I'd secretly recorded. I didn't even bother hiding the anger in my voice. "So Lisa," I said, "you want to tell me what's really going on, because I've got enough proof here to make your life very uncomfortable." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of panic crossing her face. She tried to act like she was surprised or maybe even innocent, but her voice was shaky when she finally spoke. "Mike, I don't know what you think you've got. This is all bullshit," she snapped, trying to dismiss everything. "You're paranoid like always. I've been working late or hanging out with friends, real friends, not some guy you're jealous of. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." I cut her off. "Don't lie to me, Lisa. I saw the messages. I saw where you've been meeting him. You've been screwing around behind my back, and I want to know why. Why did you think you could get away with this? Did you ever think about how much this hurts me? How much I trusted you?" Her face twisted into a sneer. "Oh, so now I'm the bad guy. You're the one always acting like some saint, but look at you, lying in bed helpless while your wife is out trying to have a life. You're pathetic, Mike. Honestly, I don't know why I even bother." I felt my blood boil at her words. How she could call me pathetic after what she'd done, I didn't know. I'd been trying to hold everything together, to be supportive, and this is how she repaid me. With lies, with betrayal. I clenched my fists, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not pathetic, I'm hurt. I trusted you. Lisa, I thought we had something real, but I see now it was all a lie. You've been lying, cheating, sneaking around. I want you out of this house." She looked surprised for a moment, then she laughed, a bitter, angry laugh that cut right through me. "You think I'm just going to walk away? Please. I'm not some stupid girl who's going to be heartbroken and leave just because you're upset. You've been useless for months anyway. This is your fault, not mine." That was the moment I realized this wasn't going anywhere good. She was going to keep lying, keep denying. I had enough. I told her she needed to leave, that I was done with her games, that I'd had enough of her shit. Her face turned dark like she was about to blow up, but I stood my ground. I knew this was just the beginning. When she finally stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had finally pulled back the curtain on her lies, but it didn't make me feel better. It just made everything more real. I was betrayed, broken, and now I was alone with the mess she left behind. That's when I knew I had to decide what to do next, whether I was going to give her a chance to explain herself or cut her out completely. Either way, I didn't see a way back from this. Not anymore. The days that followed were a blur of emotion, anger, sadness, confusion, like someone had ripped my life apart and I was left to pick up the pieces. I kept replaying everything she said, everything she did. Her lies, her sneers, the way she looked at me like I was nothing. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let this happen. Honestly, I felt like I was walking around in a daze, like I was watching my life from outside my body. I knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself, though. I had to do something. I started making plans to move out, to get my own place. I wanted to get away from her toxicity, from the betrayal that had poisoned everything. I also knew I needed to get revenge, not just to punish her, but to remind her that consequences come for people who cheat, people who lie and manipulate. I'd never been the revenge kind, but this was different. She crossed a line I never thought she would. I began talking to a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, see what I could do legally. I also spoke with a few friends, but mostly I kept it quiet. I didn't want her to know how much I was hurting or how much I'd already begun planning. I wanted her to feel the pressure, the guilt, the fear that she'd lost everything. I also started reaching out to the physical therapist, Jake. I needed to find out what I could, see if there was any way to leverage what I knew. One night, I decided to confront her again. Not to fight, but to set some ground rules. I called her, telling her I wanted to talk, that it was important. When she arrived, she was cocky, like she thought she still had the upper hand. But I stayed calm, cold even, and laid everything out. I told her I knew about the affair, about everything she'd been hiding. I told her I had proof, and that I was going to take legal action if she didn't start being honest with me. Her reaction, she scoffed, rolled her eyes, and tried to brush me off. "You're just jealous, Mike. You think I want some physical therapist. Please, you're insecure. This doesn't mean anything," she spat. That's when I really saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who thought she could lie her way out of everything. I didn't lose my temper, not then. Instead, I told her I was done pretending. I said I'd had enough of her lies, enough of her bullshit. "You're out of here, Lisa. I want a divorce. And don't bother trying to deny it. You've already lost the right to play that game with me." Her face turned pale, then red with rage. She looked like she was about to explode, but she didn't. Instead, she just sneered and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, I finally allowed myself to cry. All the hurt, the betrayal, the sense of broken trust, it all hit me at once. I'd spent so long trying to hold everything together, trying to be the good husband, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back. It was like the rug had been pulled out from under me. I'd given her everything, my time, my love, my trust, and she'd spit on all of it. In the days that followed, I made arrangements to move out. I found an apartment nearby, close enough that I could still see my kids but far enough to breathe. I needed distance, space to think clearly. I also started putting some of her stuff in boxes, things I'd held on to, memories I now realized meant nothing with her lying and cheating like that. Every step I took felt like a small victory. I was reclaiming my life, my dignity. But inside, I still felt hollow. The betrayal cut deep, and I kept asking myself why she'd do this, why she'd choose someone else over me. It's hard when someone you trusted so completely turns out to be just another liar, another user. I thought about all the times I'd been there for her, about how I'd never once doubted her loyalty. Now, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without consequences. I was already planning my next move, figuring out how to make her regret ever crossing that line. I didn't know exactly what that looked like yet, but I knew I wanted her to see that her betrayal wasn't just going to be swept under the rug. I was going to make her feel the pain she'd caused me, and I was going to do it in a way that she wouldn't forget. Because at the end of the day, a betrayal like this isn't just about the cheating. It's about losing someone you thought was your life partner and realizing the whole thing was based on lies. And I wasn't going to let her walk away without feeling that. The worst part about all of this is that I never saw it coming. I always thought Lisa was a little bitchy, sure, but I figured that was just her personality. I never imagined she'd do something this cruel, cheating on me with a guy who was supposed to be helping me recover, no less. I mean, how do you even process that kind of betrayal? I kept asking myself if I was somehow to blame, if I missed the signs, if maybe I wasn't enough. But deep down I knew the truth. She chose to cheat, to lie, to be selfish. And that realization ate away at me every day. Living alone now, I feel a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I don't miss her, the constant bitching, the lies, the sneaking around. But I do miss the life I thought I had, the trust that's been shattered beyond repair. Still, I refuse to let her win completely. I've moved out, I've started therapy, and I'm rebuilding my sense of self. The betrayal has opened my eyes to who she really was, someone I thought I knew but who was just pretending all along. Looking back, I wish I'd seen it sooner. Maybe then I wouldn't have been so blindsided, so crushed. But I also realized that some people are just good at hiding who they really are until it's too late. I trusted her, and she threw that trust back in my face. That's something I'll have to live with, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm not going to be a victim of her lies anymore. I learned a lot from this experience, things I wish I'd known before maybe, but some lessons have to be learned the hard way. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deeper than anything. But it also teaches you who you really are. I've come to understand that I don't need someone who lies and cheats to be happy. I need honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if someone can't give me that, then they're better out of my life. So now I focus on moving forward. I see friends, spend time with my kids, work on healing myself. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp. I know I'll be okay, better, stronger, more cautious next time. Because I've learned that sometimes the biggest lessons in life come from the worst betrayals. And no matter how much it hurts, you get through it. You come out the other side knowing your worth. Lisa's gone, and I don't wish her anything bad. She made her choices, and I accept that. I just hope she figures out what she truly wants someday, because she's going to lose a lot more if she keeps running from what she's done. For me, this is the end of the chapter. No more looking back. It's time to rebuild, to find peace, and to remember that even in betrayal, there's a chance to start over, and that's exactly what I plan to do.